Alrighty, so normally I don't do this, which is do a preview on the day of the match week, but because we don't have a matinee game this week, which I think this is the first match week where we don't have a matinee game during the weekend, so that means we are going to get 12 games that's going to be happening on Saturday, and then we have the two games that is happening on Sunday, and we're also not going to have a day game in any of these games because all these games is going to be kicking off in the evening as well, and I have a feeling that is going to happen with the way that, yeah, there were a part of our country right now that is really hot right now, and playing in the daytime is absolutely insane when you consider playing in some part of the country that it is pretty much now at the peak of the summer. But with that being said, I am going to go to one of these games because, as it is the case every time when we're into the last week of June, there's always a tradition that I do, which is go to the Cali Classico at Stanford Stadium, and I'm going to be doing it again this year, once again. But let us begin with the first of six games that starts at 7:30 p.m. Eastern. In fact, there's going to be a point this match week where there's going to be 10 games that's going to be happening at the same time. And because I'm going to the Cali Classico, there's probably going to be almost no chance in terms of me trying to keep up with all of these games. But we start off with the first one, which is Toronto versus the Portland Timbers, and we definitely have a bit of interconference matchup, at least in the earlier kickoff, that is. And when I say earlier kickoff, I meant the East Coast kickoff, that is, in the 7:30 p.m. Eastern kickoff. But yeah, this game between Toronto, who is 3-5-10, and the Timbers 8-6-4, all-time meaning 5-2-4 in favor of Toronto FC. Now, the Portland Timbers were one of the few teams that had that luxury of not have to play in the middle of the week, but they also does not have the luxury in terms of them getting back to match fitness in terms of competitive edge. Again, for those teams that did not play in the middle of the week, this will be the first game since the Gold Cup break is over. So for some of these teams, they have not played in 2 weeks, and while 2 weeks seems like not a lot of time, that can still be a lot of time where if you're playing almost every single game every week, and especially with how tight the schedule was in May, it does kind of throw you off. The fact that you get a 2 week off, and that it will be interesting to see whether or not the coaches will make sure the players are back to match fitness, because a 2 week break is a long period of break to go without a game. So we'll see whether or not the Timbers will be sharp in this one against the TFC side that they got a 1-1 draw against the New York Red Bulls. And they're a team that, yes, I know they're not going to make the playoffs this season, and they're still in the midst of this deep rebuild. But I am impressed in terms of how TFC has been playing in these last couple of games. The fact that they're a very tough team to beat. I don't think I can say that this is a team that I said in the beginning of the year are the Santa Claus of MLS, giving up 3 points at will, because this team has kind of become a very tough team to beat with the way that they play a very tough and style kind of defensive structure under Robin Fraser. Now, is it exciting to watch? Absolutely not. It's pretty bad to watch, but that's kind of what you get when you have teams are not doing well. A lot of teams that don't do well, they usually tends to rely on this tactics of this kind of negative style of playing, just trying to stay compact and make sure they don't give up goals at will, and that's going to be something that the Timbers were going to have to try to break down against this TFC side. That, again, this is a team that plays that kind of style, and while they don't win a lot of watchability kind of ratings of that, they don't care, because this is a team that is still in the midst of this deep rebuild, and they just want to finish the season on a respectable note. Now, moving on, we got Orlando versus FC Cincinnati. So for one game where I don't know if there's going to be a lot of goals between TFC and the Portland Timbers. I mean, I know the Timbers are teams that know to score goals, but TFC tends to keep things tight. So when most of the games that they play are usually very low scored, to a game where we might see more goals in this game between Orlando versus Cincinnati. In fact, I think this is a very underrated game. This probably might be the most underrated game from this match week. Obviously, everybody, of course, focus on a couple of these big games, especially we'll talk about this one in terms of Sunday night soccer. And for once, we actually get a good Sunday night soccer game. But this game is underrated too, because of the fact that Orlando City, they come off probably the best road performance that they had over the middle of the week against St. Louis, a 4-2 win on the road, whereas Cincinnati also won on the road as well, a 3-1 win against Montreal on the road, and this is still one of the best road team in the league this season with an 11-3-5 record, whereas Orlando is 9-6 and 4 all-time meeting, 5-3 in favor of Orlando City. And in some ways, somebody's gonna have to give in this game because Orlando is very good this season at home. They're one of the best teams at home and usually play that attacking style play at home against a team that is very good on the road. And seems like they're more comfortable playing on the road than they are playing at home, which is kind of something we've seen Pat Nolan's side has done over the years. So somebody's gonna have to give. This should be a heck of a matchup. Do not be surprised if there's gonna be goals that could be scored in this matchup, and also do not be surprised if this might be a preview of a playoff meeting. I have a feeling there could be a chance that both of these teams could meet each other in the playoffs, whether it's in the yeah, most likely, I don't think it's going to be in the first round. I think both of these teams are going to finish pretty well high up the standings, but maybe in the second round, maybe even in the conference final. Should be a heck of a matchup between these two really good teams in the East and teams that I think could be contenders in the Eastern Conference by the end of the season. Now, moving on back to another interconference matchup, which is the New York Red Bulls versus Minnesota. So the Red Bulls 8-4-7, whereas Minnesota 9-6-4. The Red Bulls coming off that 1-1 draw against Toronto. Minnesota coming off the 3-1 win at home against the Dynamo. All-time meeting 2-1 and 2 is the all-time meeting. Yeah, both of these teams don't usually meet each other very often because it's an interconference matchup. And in some way, I will say that that win that the Loons had against the Dynamo that really kind of put some pressure off of this game against the Red Bulls because I think if they wouldn't have got that result against Houston, there could be a chance where this game you would say Minnesota has more pressure in terms of getting win. Now, not saying that I don't think this team is going to not win this game, even though I know the Red Bulls are one of the best team at home. Minnesota is also one of the best road team this season as well. So again, this is very similar to the last game I talked about, where somebody's gonna have to give. Like team that's very good at home versus a team that is very good on the road. Somebody's probably gonna win, or this is gonna just end in a draw. But if it does end in draw, I'll be satisfied in terms of that because Minnesota is going through a period just like last season where they are missing players left, right, and center because of the Gold Cup break. They're one of the most affected team because of players missing due to Gold Cup break, and it's all about surviving this stretch and hope that they still maintain themselves as one of the better team in the Western Conference. And so far, they've done exactly that. When you look at the standing, they're still third in the standings. They're still within touching distance of second and first place as well. I mean, I don't expect them to finish first place. I don't expect them to potentially catch Vancouver or San Diego in that spot, but they're getting the wins that they needed to do so, though this is going to be a tough game against the Red Bulls on the road. And like I said, the Red Bulls are much better playing at home than compared to them playing on the road, and we'll see whether or not if that's the case. I mean, if Minnesota can get this win, then all of a sudden this can really put a lot of pressure in terms of the next game that they play against Dallas on the 4th of July, because with the way that Minnesota is going to have a lot of games upcoming. I've already mentioned before how many games that they will have in this next 2 or 3 weeks period. If they can win this game against the Red Bulls, then Harold Ramsey might be tempting to just kind of punt that 4th of July game away against Dallas because they got the U.S. Open Cup in the middle of the week, and I think this team absolutely need to take that competition seriously, especially with the way that they're going to have home field advantage pretty much throughout. I already mentioned the road to U.S. Open Cup glory is going to have to go for Allianz this year, and that they have to take that tournament seriously, and a really big opportunity for the club to finally win their first trophy in their MLS existence. Now we move on to the next one, which is New England versus the Colorado Rapids. So New England 6-5-6, whereas the Rapids is 7-4-8, and these are two teams that are kind of become a little bit inconsistent. Colorado, they did get the win against the Galaxy, but it's against the Galaxy. Everybody has been able to get wins against the Galaxy for mostly, and New England, it feels like they're starting to go in the wrong direction again. I mean, after an incredible run of form that they have to really get themselves back into playoff contention after just a disastrous start under Caleb Porter, things started to kind of turn the wrong way again, and part of that is because of the way that they are started giving up more goals than they have doing that stretch where they were one of the best defensive team, and they're still one of the best defensive team not only in the East but in MLS in general. I think they're the second best defensive team right now. And just like Toronto, I think New England kind of plays the same style where they know that they don't really have a lot of talent attacking being sense, which I say that, but they do have a guy called Carlos Hill, who I'm pretty sure he'll be very disappointed to get left out from the All-Star game, and he'll definitely have something to prove. But still, this is not a firepower New England side that we've seen in recent memory. And again, this might be another game where if you are looking for goals and looking for entertainment, this might not be the game for you to watch between the New England Revolution and the Colorado Rapids. Now moving on, we got Montreal versus NYCFC. So Montreal 2-5-12, whereas NYCFC is 8-4-6. All-time meeting 13-5-4 in favor of NYCFC. But mind you, the first win that Montreal has got this season was against NYCFC. So even though NYCFC has kind of have ownage on Montreal recently, Montreal kind of break that script in the last game. And if there is an opportunity where Montreal can finally get their first win since September, I mean, it is hard to believe. It's almost 10 months since Montreal has been able to get a home win at Stade Saputo, and now they're facing against an NYCFC side that, yeah, not only they're inconsistent, but they're inconsistently bad when it comes to playing on the road. They really suck this season when it comes to playing on the road, and it's been a problem for them really the past couple of years now. So this is a golden opportunity for Montreal to try to capitalize. I mean, in the game against Cincinnati, yes, they kind of were play out of the park a little bit throughout the game, but that was against Cincinnati, and there were at least a couple of time in that game where I saw there was some good spell from this Montreal side, but they just weren't able to take advantage and just scoring a goal in that crucial spell. They're gonna have to do that in this game against NYCFC, and I would also say that for NYCFC, the pressure could be on them in this game as well because yeah, NYCFC have it's kind of a very weird team this season. They have been able to beat some really good team. Heck, they're one of the few teams to be able to beat FC Cincinnati this season when they're playing at home. And I talk about how good Cincinnati has been on the road, but then they also have these kind of results where they lose to Montreal and Houston at home. And mind you, that was a Houston squad that basically they didn't even play their strongest team, and also just a Dynamo side that was kind of already in the downturn. So again, when it comes to facing against opponent that they should win, that's where the problem is for NYCFC this season. They're not able to do so, especially on the road this season. So this is a golden opportunity for Montreal to get something, and mind you, maybe do a double against NYCFC. I mean, imagine if NYCFC lose to Montreal twice. I'm pretty sure NYCFC fans are going to be called for Pascal Janssen heads, and once again going to call for the heads of a lot of the front office member, because you can't be expect to be a playoff team if you're going to lose Montreal twice, and especially a team that is eyeing to potentially looking to try to finish the season as a worst team in the Eastern Conference, and maybe even trying to win the wooden spoon this year as well. Now, moving on, we got DC versus Nashville SC. So on paper, this looks like it's a mismatch. I mean, DC, we know how bad this season has gone. They're going for a bit of a downturn as well, whereas Nashville is really the hottest team right now in the league. I mean, 10 games unbeaten coming into this. It's been 2 months since Nashville has last lost a game. It's the longest unbeaten run that any team has gone right now. Up to now. But yeah, DC have a 4-6-9 record, whereas Nashville 10-5-4. And in terms of the all-time meeting, 4-3-2 in favor of Nashville SC. So again, on paper, this should be a mismatch. This should be an easy win for Nashville SC. But mind you, I think the last time both of these teams faced against each other, Nashville didn't get a win against DC United, and that was at home. So maybe DC might have something up their sleeve again in this one to hold Nashville to getting all 3 points. But nevertheless, again, on paper, it looks like a mismatch. It looks like Nashville should win this one easily. But there's a reason why I don't go back by saying that I'm gonna guarantee and say automatically the team that's heavy favorite is gonna win a game, because when I did that before, it does not go so well, and we know in MLS anything can happen, so unpredictability could happen, and DC are just gonna hope that that's kind of the case, because if that's not the case, this should be a cakewalk for Nashville to get another 3 points and extend their unbeaten run to 11 games now. Now, moving on to now looking at the 8:30 p.m. kickoff. We got 4 games that start at 8:30 p.m. Eastern, 5:30 p.m. Pacific. Starting off with the Houston Dynamo versus St. Louis City. Houston 5-5-9, whereas St. Louis is 3-6-10. And in terms of the all-time meeting, 3-2-1 in favor of St. Louis City. And we just this is maybe a desperation derby of the week, because the Dynamo, I mentioned how things have really fallen apart for them in the last couple of games, especially the defense too. I mean, the defense has been absolutely woeful for this Dynamo side. They're giving up free goals for more pretty much almost every game in the last past 4 games, and they're facing against the St. Louis side that, speaking of giving up goals, I mean, they gave up a lot of goals in that game against Orlando City, and probably could have been worse if it wasn't for Roman Berkey kind of just getting completely hung out to dry in that game. But they have a 3-6-10 record. It feels like the interim head coach boost is very short lived for the St. Louis side, because they're kind of becoming a team that they do play that entertaining brand of soccer now. They are a little bit more attacking threat, but at the expense now, we're starting to see why maybe Olaf Malberg decided to go very negative with this team, because yeah, you see when they started to be more attacking minded and trying to go a little bit more aggressive on the attack. Now they're just getting absolutely exposed on the defensive end, because they just don't have the defensive structure to play that attacking style. So in some way, I would say that I mean I know St. Louis fan is not going to admit the fact that they own it. Apologies to Olaf Melberg because of how the team is, and the way that Olaf Melberg sets up, even in a defensive standpoint, that was just way too defensive, and I can understand why St. Louis fans didn't want to see that kind of play. But at the same time, now that they are going with almost the opposite model, I think they're now kind of realize that, yeah, maybe Olaf Melberg wasn't completely wrong. The fact that they decided to play a defensive style when it was pretty clear that now that when they started being a little bit more attacking minded, that's when the defense are just getting absolute rinse, because of that. They don't have that defensive uh, reinforcement that we saw with Olaf Melberg. But yeah, like I said, it's a desperation derby for both of these teams. Both of these teams desperately need a win, and we'll see who exactly is going to do so in this game. Now, moving on, we got Sporting KC versus RSL, and this game could be another game you could say it's a desperation derby for two teams that are trying to stay within touching distance in terms of making the playoffs, or you could also say this is the battle of the mid between both of these teams that is currently 11 and 12 place. But yeah, Sporting KC 5-4-10. They had an incredible comeback against Charlotte over the middle of the week, whereas RSL is 5-3-10, and RSL is one of those teams that did not play during the middle of the week, so they're a team that haven't played in quite some while. All-time meeting 15-9-11 in favor of RSL. I remember when this was a matchup that is kind of a must-watch matchup because of how heated at times this game could be between two really good teams. Yeah, those days are long gone. Both of these teams are not doing very well this season, and yeah, we'll see who, of course, will get the win in this one to kind of maybe give them some hope to get themselves back into playoff contention. Because when you look in the Western Conference, right now there are still some teams that is within touching distance in the standings, and there's no doubt that when you look at the points total and the quality, yeah, the East is much stronger compared to the West this season. I would not be surprised if somebody will have an under 500 record when it comes to the wins and loss total and still sneak into the playoffs in the West, whereas in the East, that's obviously almost impossible to do. So you could say both of these teams are still within touching distance, and if they can get a win, they're going to be right there in terms of to sneak into the playoffs. Now, moving on, we got FC Dallas versus San Diego FC. So yeah, my condolences got to be with FC Dallas. And not only they got drilled in that game and just kind of suffer a really a late game meltdown that they had with them giving up the goals because of defensive mistake and red cards that has happened. Now they face against a team that is probably the hottest team right now in the Western Conference, and right up there in terms of Nashville being the hottest team right now in the league. That is San Diego FC. They've now taken the top spot in the Western Conference with an 11-3-5 record, whereas Dallas have a 5-6-7 record. Now, last time both of these teams meet each other, yeah, it was not pretty. I mean, yeah, if you're a Dallas fan, you would not want to remember last time when they faced against the expansion side. They lost 5-0 in that game, and something tells me it could be something similar to that as well. Because, like I said, this San Diego side, they're playing with so much confidence right now. I mean, this is a team that, as I said about the Vancouver Whitecaps early this season, they're an absolute wagon right now, and you definitely do not want to face San Diego right now with how hot that they've been in. So yeah, for Dallas, they better hope that when it comes to hotness, the Heat maybe can use as a way to slow down the San Diego side, because again, playing in a midweek week game, especially when you have to play back-to-back midweek games on the road. It's not easy to do so, and especially after a big win that San Diego has against Vancouver. We always talk about just because you get a big win, the next game could be interesting as well because you could either carry that momentum into the next game or you can definitely suffer a bit of a letdown, and especially with how big that win was for San Diego, just a statement win, really, to not just the rest of the Western Conference, but really to the rest of the league. That this team is on point of becoming the best expansion side we've ever seen in league history. But they're gonna make noise once they get into the playoffs as well. Yeah, it will be interesting to see how San Diego will continue that momentum, and Dallas is gonna have to try every way to slow them down. In many ways, they're gonna have a hands full to trying to slow them down in this game. I mean, if they can't handle the Quakes, and I know the Quakes is another team that is very good on the attacking end, and they had a lot of trouble in terms of trying to handle the Quakes in that game in the middle of the week. Oh, good luck trying to handle San Diego FC in this one. Now, moving on, we got Chicago versus Charlotte FC. So Chicago's 7-4-7, whereas Charlotte is 8-1-10. And I would say this is pretty much the desperation derby out of the Eastern Conference because for Chicago, as well as they have played this season, the home form is kind of the reason why they're outside the playoff position. Have they won at least a couple more home games? Not even like a lot. Like if they can just win one or two extra home games, they would be above the red line right now. And they're facing against a team that is just above the red line right now, that is Charlotte FC. But this is a team that is just gone completely wrong in these last two months. Ever since they were at the top of the Eastern Conference at one point this season, it's been nothing but just downward trend ever since. And that kind of feeling was really amplified in the game in the middle of the week where they were on their way of getting a 1-0 win heading into stoppage time, and then just completely they self-destruct in the span of just 3 minutes, losing 2-1 and giving up those two goals deep in stoppage time. But in terms of the all-time meeting, 5-0-2 in favor of Charlotte FC. So Charlotte at least has Chicago's number. And like I said, for the Fire, one of the other issue with the Fire this season, besides the fact that they've been poor at home, they can't score at home. I mean, this is a team that is very night and day when they play at home and on the road. On the road, we know how good this team is, and they're a fun team to watch in terms of the goal scoring. But at home, it's like they're very clinical in terms of their finishing on the road. But at home, they just cannot find that same clinical finishing, and it's kind of a mystery for all to see of why they struggle so much at home, even though they're almost playing almost at the same level that they are at home compared to them playing on the road. So we'll see whether if they can figure this out against especially against a struggling Charlotte side in this one. Now, moving on, we got Seattle versus Austin FC. So this is the first matchup that Seattle is going to be playing in the league since their Club World Cup kind of venture. And I wonder how these teams that were in the Club World Cup and now that they're back in MLS play, how they will do. And they face against an Austin side that also didn't play in the middle of the week, so it's been a while since Los Verdes has played a game. They have a 7-5-7 record, whereas Seattle is 7-5-6, and both of these teams are pretty close to each other as well when you look at the record. Now, in terms of the all-time meeting, Seattle has absolutely owned Austin, 4-3-1 in favor of the Sounders in the all-time meeting, and they're definitely looking to trying to add another win in this one. I mean, Austin, I will say that this team, before the Gold Cup break, they actually found their mojo go back. It feels like they're starting to win games. They're starting to play kind of a Nico Estevez kind of style of just grinding out resort and getting 3 points by the skin of their teeth. We'll see whether or not if that continue after the break. And again, it's not easy to face against a sound side that again, I think when you look at their venture in the Club World Cup, consider the way that they have to face against some of the toughest team in the world. I would say they did a really good job. I mean, I would, if I had to give them a grade in terms of how their Club World Cup is, and I know they didn't get a single point out of this, and this might be a little bit more of me kind of being an MLS sickles and maybe a favoritism kind of grade, but I'll give them a B in terms of how they do in the FIFA Club World Cup, and we'll see now whether or not if that can carry back into league play, because yeah, it is a huge difference from playing against the European champion that is Paris Saint-Germain to now playing against Austin FC in league play. That is. Now, moving on into the last game that I'm going to talk about that happens on Saturday, and this is the game that I mentioned. I'm going to be going. This is going to be the 10th straight Cali Clasico at Stanford Stadium that I'm going. It's hard to believe I'm gone to 10 straight of them. I definitely remember a lot of great memories in terms of the years that I've been to Classico every single year since 2015. I will never forget the Shea Salinas stoppage time goal. That is still fresh in my memory. But I also will not forget the fact that, yeah, this team, they need to end this little losing streak that they have against the Galaxy at Cali Classico. Albeit it's not a big losing streak. It's only the last two games, but it kind of feels like it's been a while since the Quakes have been able to beat the Galaxy in a Cali Classico. And I think last Cali Classico, that was probably the rock bottom for the Quakes when it comes to playing the Galaxy in the Cali Classico at Stanford. Like out of all the Cali Classico that I've attended, that last time when they lost 3-0 against the Galaxy, that was probably the worst that the Quakes have played in the Cali Classico. Now, obviously, the table has completely turned ever since that. I mean, right now it seems like the role has kind of reversed, where the fact that the Quakes not only have been much better this season, but they're kind of playing very similar to what we saw with the Galaxy last season, where defense could be questionable, but the attack is absolutely ruthless. I mean, they have scored the most goal that any team has had this season at 39 goals, and they when they have all their attacking pieces on this team, this is one of the most dangerous side on the attack. And what's kind of even more crazy is that they're kind of still underperforming their expectancy goal rate. So imagine you're a team that is the top scoring team in the league, but you're still underperforming your expectancy goal. And there's many times I kind of moan about how the Quakes are not being very clinical in terms of finishing, when people just point me out that I'm just being too negative, even though they're the top goal scoring team. Well, yes, I am at times maybe being a little bit too hard on the Quakes at times. But when you look at some of the games that they play, especially some of the games that they should have won if they were being a little bit more clinical in terms of finishing, I mean, can you blame me for moaning Resort? Because it finish the season being the top goal scoring team doesn't really mean anything until you look at the resort of this team. And this team, again, they have had some inconsistent resort this season. Albeit, yes, I'll take this compared to what happened last season, where they were just absolutely woeful throughout the season. You just kind of had a sense that this team could definitely be better. Though I say it's inconsistency, then people will remind me the fact that this team have only lost twice since May. So yeah, there's that. But there also are some draws in that one that I think they could have got wins out there. And again, speaking of wins, this is a game that I think they should win against the Galaxy side that is 1-5-13. And for those that still think that the Galaxy have a chance to make it to the playoffs if they finally get their first win out of the table, no, they're done. They're clearly done. You saw it in the game against Colorado. They pretty much show very little effort in that game. And yeah, for the Quakes, they've also already beaten the Galaxy this season in the Cali Classico, albeit that game against the Galaxy on the road, it wasn't a pretty performance. In fact, it was kind of a bit of a woeful performance by the Quakes, but they were able to still knocked out a 1-0 win on the road. So I expect that there should be the same thing in this game. I expect the Quakes should win this one. I really hope that it is the case, because again, there's a big crowd in this one. Anytime when we have a Cali Classico at Stanford Stadium, this is kind of like the MLS Cup for the Quakes. It's up to this team to really perform in front of this big crowd and give something to cheer about, because yeah, these last two Cali Classico, it hasn't really been a lot to cheer about with this Quakes when it comes to the winning perspective against the Galaxy. Now, moving on into the Sunday games, and we start off with Columbus versus the Philadelphia Union. That is the Sunday night showcase game. And like I said, out of all the Sunday night soccer game that we have seen, I think this is probably the best one that we have seen. There has been some very bad Sunday night soccer game, but this is definitely going to be one that's going to be fun to watch, because Columbus have a 9-7-3 record, started to figure things out in the last couple of games under Wilfred Nancy, and they're facing against the team that is currently at the top of the East. That is the Philadelphia Union with a 12-9-3 record. Now, this is a bit of an earlier start for a Sunday night soccer game, 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific. All-time meeting, 18-7-13 in favor of the Columbus Crew. So, yeah, this should be kind of interesting, and especially with the way that, we know Columbus is a high octane kind of attack under Wilfred Nancy, but we'll see whether or not if they can do well against a Union side that is started becoming one of the better defensive team in the league under Bradley Carnell, and there are some people that question whether that can continue to sustain throughout the season of how surprisingly that Bradley Carnell has got the best out of the team, and especially I also will be interested to see with the way that since both of these teams like to play in a pressing system, and I will say that the Union. Even under Bradley Carnell, it feels like Bradley Carnell kind of backed off on the press a little bit compared to doing his day with St. Louis and the Red Bulls. He doesn't play that energy drinks soccer style at its maximum now that he's with the Union, and I wonder maybe that's kind of him learning the lesson, the fact that you can't just go like this for the whole game before teams would start to figure out and exhaust the team. But still, this should be very entertaining to watch. Don't be surprised if there could be a lot of goals that could be scored in this game as well. And like I said, probably one of the best Sunday night soccer showcase game we have this season, and a game that, do not be surprised, could be a matchup that we could see in the playoffs down the line as well. Speaking of another good game, we got LAFC versus the Vancouver Whitecaps. So this is another good game, and I wish they could have just done a double header for this Sunday night soccer kind of thing, because this would also be a fun matchup to see, because LAFC, they're another team that just got out of the FIFA Club World Cup. By the way, in terms of the FIFA Club World Cup, we do have Inter Miami playing against PSG. That's at 9 a.m. Yeah, that's kind of brutal for me to have to wake up that early in the morning to watch the game. But I'll definitely tune in, and I'll do a review of that game after the game concluded. But yeah, LAFC is another team that just fresh out of the Club World Cup, and out of the three MLS team that enter the Club World Cup, I think LAFC is probably going to be the more disappointing side, because when you look at the group that they're in, I mean, yes, there are some really good teams that they had to face, but they also had to face. They have probably the easiest team that they get to face in the Club World Cup in ES Tunis or Esperanta Tunis, and yeah, they did not do well in that game against them. They lost that one, and it's kind of the reason why they're out of the Club World Cup. Now, it's not easy, the fact that coming out of the Club World Cup, they have to face against one of the best team in the league, and one of the best team in the West, and a team that I think is downright angry right now. I mean, I'm pretty sure Jasper Sorensen and his Whitecaps team are going to be playing angry coming into this one, and especially with them kind of going through a bit of a struggle lately, mainly because they are missing some key guys on this team. They're not 100% in terms of the strongest team that Jasper Sorensen's side usually gets to choose. Still, this is a team that is going to be playing angry because they feel like they should have gotten something out of that game against San Diego. I didn't think they played badly in that game. I mean, the scoreline would not implicate that, especially at times it was kind of one-sided. But that if there's one thing we know about a Jasper Sorensen side, this team does not give up. Like, if the scoreline is bad, let's say if LAFC is up 3-0 or even 4-1 in this one, I wouldn't even say LAFC is that going to be that comfortable, because Vancouver's not going to give up. They're going to keep going on the attack, and they're going to keep trying, and deep down that Vancouver would absolutely love to have the revenge against LAFC, because this is the team that knocked them out of the playoffs the last couple years, and if they really need a desperate win to get themselves back to being among the best in the West and among the best in the league, and also kind of send a message to the rest of the league that, yeah, this kind of a bad run of spell of form that they've been in since the beginning of June. That's maybe just a little bit of a mirage. It seems like it's just kind of a blip in the window. And for LAFC, it's not easy. The fact that you're coming back from a Club World Cup play now that they face against the Whitecaps. I mean, the good news is they are playing at home. They're very good this season at 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 home, but yeah, you're facing against a team that is not only good at home this season, but also very good on the road as well. They only lost once so far this season on the road. It did come recently against the Columbus Crew, but this is going to be probably the toughest opponent that LAFC might face, or at least one of the toughest opponent, because they still have to face against San Diego, and that should be interesting, especially with how good San Diego is right now so far this season. But there you have it. That is pretty much it for my preview of all of these games. As always, let me know in the comments below, what do you think of all of these games. And yeah, hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you do, make sure to like, smash the subscribe button. And by the way, I'll most likely do the first part of the review on Sunday. Maybe I have a chance to do the second part. No, I'm gonna actually do the second part on Monday, because I'm gonna do the review of both of these games once both of these games has concluded. But either way, hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you do, make sure to like, smash the subscribe button, and yeah, I of course will see you guys next time.